Welcome to Journeys into Enlightenment with Janet. Join Janet and her friends as they gather at the intersection of consciousness and self-experience, what being consciousness in human form is all about. Access heart-centered awareness with them and feel the difference in the moment that will last a lifetime.
Hello, and welcome to Journeys into Enlightenment with Janet. I'm your host, Janet Barrett. Thank you for joining me. This podcast is about the intersections of consciousness and self. My friends joining me each episode help demonstrate and celebrate the diversity of the spectrum spirit and humanity embrace in being. We access in this space a reality that there is within each of us. It is the place of the sacred, our intuitive voice, the divine, oneness, the infinite, wholeness, the all, universe, source, cabbage, or consciousness. We have more than one word for this space, and that word reflects our slant on it. When we're using consciousness technologies, this reality is in the field of unified consciousness. It is filled with potential. I add in a clear sense of warmth, support, and non-judgment. For many, this is filled with unity and love. In terms of consciousness technologies, this is a field of the now, with malleable time and space. It is being present. What happens for each of us in this sense of state? Over the course of our time together, you will find your awareness of wholeness here, whatever you may call it. Consider it an active state of potential, and in the moment, which is all there really ever is, relax mind and let yourself feel. Could be as an emotion or a physical sensation. Just let things be without the need to change them. Offer no resistance or avoidance. Offer no judgment or evaluation. Just let mind loosen. Let yourself be surprised. Let yourself follow where you find yourself. Let yourself feel the shift in awareness that is present as you continue to resonate with us. A lot of people wonder if they make a difference in being alive. Would they be missed? What came into awareness as I asked this question was the connection of E equals MC2 as Hundredth monkey principle in play. What was I noticing? E equals MC2 is at essence means a tiny mass can equal big energy of influence. The Hundredth monkey principle is all about how one tiny monkey on an island exhibits a new behavior and other monkeys on other islands demonstrate that same behavior. This is morphic resonance. What they both demonstrate together is how a tiny creature creates a big energy ripple into the field of unified consciousness that is picked up by other tiny creatures. Without that individual monkey, nothing new would happen in the same way. Joining me is Steve Farrell, Director of Humanities Team. We both share values in how important we each are, all of us, in the scheme of things, this life. We will examine how our individual sense of personal conscious leadership affects each of us and the world around us. We notice when being is the alignment of the little one as the big one in action. Tom's meditation this episode is simply titled Oneness from his extensive meditation archive at Interlude, an internet retreat. Enjoy.
Oneness. Flowers have petals, and each petal is an individual. Trees have leaves, and each leaf is an individual. Humanity has people, and each person is an individual. The petal and leaf separate from the rest of the flower or tree wither and die. We do not stand alone. We individuals are a part of the whole. The tree needs the sun and the rain and the earth. It responds to wind and fire. It gives shelter and food to other living things. It's not a tree alone. It's part of the ecosystem that is part of the world, that is part of the universe. The sun and the tree are one. The tree and the squirrel are one. The tree and the boy carving his initials in its bark are one. We can go through life feeling separate. We build our ego defenses and protect our toys and territories. We make a name for ourselves. We expound our truths. And what we get for it is loneliness, alienation, conflict, and disagreement. When I claim this toy as mine, I invite you to take it. When I stake out my territory, I invite you to step over the line. When I claim to be leader of the pack, I invite challengers to test me. Big ego invites conflict and disagreement. Little ego gives nothing to fight against. When we speak the truth, others listen. When we claim to own the truth, others observe the lie. Each of us is precious. Each of us is unique. Each has strengths and talents to develop. We have our gifts and our flaws, and we each contribute to the whole. We are individual, and we are one. Seek awareness of your connections. Think about what makes you uniquely you and what makes you like others. Think of what makes your life possible. Consider what you contribute to the whole. Sit quietly and appreciate your oneness with all that is. Leave behind words, judgments, categories, and boundaries. Be one.
Steve Farrell is my friendly guest this episode. He is director of Humanities Team. He's been a past guest on my other podcasts and was willing to join me on this adventure. He is a very gracious man. What you feel with Steve is his deep sense of spirituality and love that he centers his life around. Oneness is a living principle for him in the shared experience of life as human, animal, and this earth's incomparable being. He is a man who appreciates how at times he, himself, and all the rest of us may fall short of what we know is possible, and that we are each doing the best we can. That sounds like grace to me. Steve is comfortable working big in the world. He is the worldwide executive director for Humanities Team, a global grassroots spiritual movement focused on awakening and embodying oneness throughout the world so humanity can enjoy a sustainable world of peace, harmony, and happiness. Humanities Team presently has over 665,000 members in 150 countries. Humanities Team's projects include Global Oneness Day, a day that Humanities Team created following its visit to the United Nations in May 2010, a Oneness Declaration, a year-round Living in Oneness Summit, an annual Spiritual Leadership Award. They have established a Conscious Business Declaration, Conscious Business Practitioner Training and Certification, Community Circle, prayer and meditation programs, and service projects focused on helping people and the environment. Before Steve became involved with Humanities Team, he co-founded and led 2 high-growth technology companies based in Silicon Valley in the 1990s that were featured on the Fortune 500 list and spanned the United States and Europe. During that time, he was also an officer in the Young Entrepreneurs Organization and the Young Presidents Organization, but he walked away from it all to answer the calling he felt to help create a new dream for humanity to manifest together. I am delighted to share our time here. Oh, thank you for joining me today, Steve. How are you doing?
I am awesome. How are you? Yeah, it's a beautiful time of year.
So we wanted to talk about consciousness and E equals MC2, or the 100 monkey principle at play, and what that's all about as we are in these times of adventure that we all find. So let's see, you were telling me how that is really right up your alley. And as we explore today, why you make a difference. And I think we each need to know that. How do you feel about that, Steve, that we each make a difference in the scheme of things?
Well, we do. That's actually, science demonstrates that truth, doesn't it? Because on one level, everything is energy, and we're all, conscious or unconscious, contributing actually in every moment. So, and there's no standing still. So we're actually either contributing and helping to birth this consciousness, this journeying deeper into this conscious evolution, or we're taking it in the other direction. So, yeah, everybody is making a difference always.
Well, yes, and it's all part of the spectrum where anyone might find themselves at any one time and how we all interact together. So let's see, you know about personal leadership. You know about having self-worth. Where does that figure into the scheme of things, do you think?
Well, boy, now is such an important time for personal leadership, isn't it? Certainly, as we all look out on the world, unconscious or conscious, we can see, oh my goodness, we've got some substantial challenges here. And the old saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going, right? So, and it's true. And I might just say that in the last year, I've actually been shocked, because I've been in the room with some substantial, key, important conscious leaders. Mm-hmm. And at various moments during these meetings, often one has shared, again, in the last year, can we make the room safe to talk about hopelessness and despair? So, yeah. which really, whoa, that my jaw dropped hearing that. But it was valuable they were walking that in, because I think they're a voice for so many people all over the world who are saying, in my wildest dreams, I never could have imagined that we would find our place here. So we do need to acknowledge that, and this is our starting point. That many, I think, feel less hopeful or even hopeless, and this is why conscious leadership is so important. And of course, our conscious leadership its basis is in our spiritual practice, but it's why it's so important, because we really do all need to get going, and most importantly, we need to, if we've lost touch with our dream, this dream of flourishing communities, of a conscious earth. Wow, now we need to get our dream back.
Well, I think what you're talking about is how in the spectrum, there will always be light and dark. There will always be this and that. And we have labels for that. We have feelings for that. And all of it is part of the whole. And that those of us who do this work, we appreciate that is this opposition, that the contrast is present always. And in personal leadership, to me, it's going to be about how you realize that both have a place and you get to make choices. And an informed choice is when you appreciate that within you and that which is within another and what you want to do with it. Only as consciousness, recognizing that part in yourself, can you be in a more unified position with it, right? As opposed to oppositions. When you focus in oppositions, then you get stuck into those games that creates. So being able to appreciate that there is within all of us, there's places that go dark that we may have a real awareness of or may not, depending upon our personal story, that this is what's out there. And if you don't acknowledge it, if you don't let it be the elephant in the room present, then you are not functioning from a place of integrity and within oneself, and certainly with what you find out in the world.
Yeah, Janet, this is actually so important. What we're talking about here now is affirming the perfection, in divine creation in life, and showing faith in it, blessing it. Exactly that. This is the role when I'm talking about the tough get going. This is what the tough do. It's not the Western world of tough getting going, of where we're slandering this. No. Right. So as an unconscious world becomes conscious, our role is to transform, is to heal, is to be the alchemist, is to bless. Exactly. As such, and to see the perfection in this beautiful life process.
Right. See, whether it's light, dark, however your reference is, there's perfection in all of it. Right? Because it is the experience that you're having, and it's what you do with it. And that's where this self comes up, when we awaken to all these forces at play, and then we start to make informed choices from an authentic place. What we see so much, I think, in the world is how, and I don't judge religions or any of those things, because they're created, right? And you can take them apart, you can do what you want with them. It's how you relate to these morphic fields of beliefs, etc. How you experience something, and you look and see if it's your experience. Someone says something, someone promotes a viewpoint, always remembering that it's a viewpoint, right, from within that perspective. Now, it may be very traditionalized, and it may be thousands of years old, or it may be something I just thought of in the moment, but there's a connection to it, and that's what the leadership part comes in, that we are each powerful enough to be important, and that how we hold ourselves is what ripples out into the world and what will show up. And the reason we have such diversity is because everyone's at a different place in those awarenesses and in what we can affect.
Yeah, there's no the truth. There is only our truth. Which means that our job is never to judge, right? We want to share our truth and then honor other people's truth. And for me, in my truth, there's this just deep gratitude and blessing and love for this one presence that I'm an emanation of, and that everybody, in my understanding, everybody in all animal life and plant life and the earth itself is an emanation of this one. And its basis is actually unconditional love. And it's created this beautiful life process where we go back and forth between the absolute realm and this relative realm. And in the relative realm, we get to express what do we know ourselves to be, which is love. It's as simple and as complex as that.
Well, so those are a place that you work out of, so that that what shows up in your world, you're still okay, right? See, I think that's that foundation, that essence and infinite, and the love that you're describing is all about, is that no matter what shows up, my interpretation of it is my interpretation only, and how it has meaning in my life is up to me. And things happen, and how do I choose to respond, as opposed to how do I choose to react, which is that triggered position. And we get to make all these distinctions at some point in our life, if what a lot of spiritual practices will call about waking up. when you can know yourself as more than just what's walking on the street, when you can connect with the inner place within each of us that is walking you on the street, and how this makes differences and with what you want to do. And it's not so much our titles, because titles are fun, and then they can be very destructive. And if you don't have the right title or this title or whatever it is, you get put into a value system in a lot of people's realms. So it's how to be maybe just the neutral place that says those are gamesmanship. You want to do that, that's fine. Doesn't mean I'm any less because I'm not doing that with you. Does that make sense in your framework?
Well, and a couple things in there, worth really pulling out. One is that this is the relative realm, and so
describe relative. What when you use that term, are you talking present self, life, day kind of thing, or
so in other words, just as you were mentioning, you've got really people in all unconscious and conscious, and so you have a lot of people that feel challenged, and that aren't really feeling that love from their creator, the one of which they're a part. Whereas in the heavenly realm, in my understanding, when we drop our bodies, all we actually know is perfect love, and perfect grace and perfect peace. So here in the relative realm, we actually express what it is that we're in touch with, what our awareness is. And the light can't be the light in the absence of what we could call the darkness or something other than the light. Mm-hmm. So it's actually a blessing that we have this huge contrast. And in my understanding, when we talk about mastery, the invitation of mastery is just to always know ourselves as love and to be loving. And so as we run into these things where people feel very challenged, that we're loving toward them, helpful toward them, and spend quality time with them. Well, our key focus this year is, of course, awakening oneness with the divine, each other, and all of life is the humanities team mission, and then living into the unity of all of life. So it's the twin. One is awareness, and the other one is the actual skill or process, then living in oneness. But we want to work with homeless people this year. There's a organization called Miracle Messages that helps reunite homeless people with their friends and family. So it's an example of, in the contrast of, wow, all of us have been blessed. Most of us that are in this conscious community have a lot. We're so incredibly blessed, and they say, to whom much is given, much is asked. So we have this opportunity to help people that are more challenged than we are.
I think you're bringing up a really good point. Is everybody's in a different place, and just because one feels one's connected, a lot of times we feel connected because we know what it's like to not be connected. We know what it's like to have what we would call suffering. And it's not for me to say what is suffering for one is the same for another, though there are things that look in common that look alike or feel alike, because it's all about how we're take our experiences and what we do with them, and what someone's one path is maybe different from another one, and how you can see stuff. We often can see things. Right? I know things. And the challenge is how to make it active, how to not make it just be a visual and then it's something you beat yourself up with. And, oh, yeah, you're right, there's this. It's where the awareness part sets in and you can be activated by it. And so you're inspired to movement. The motivation is an outside thing that comes inward and you go, yeah, let me work with that. And then it's an inspiration, and that's what will move you. We take in stuff all the time, and what we do with it is up to us. And So it's walking our walk or walking our talk or whatever those wonderful little sayings are in how to help people who want to be helped and to appreciate there are people who don't want to be helped. And whatever the distinctions are, that's all part of the whole. And so it's where in providing support is where those that can acknowledge that they can, I can use a little help today, will allow themselves to be present.
Yeah, amen to that. Absolutely. So when we talk about this conscious leadership, this basis, which is what you started with here, Janet, during the program, the experiential of where we're just feeling in, we're just going into the quiet, into the silence, into this one space that we can immerse ourselves in, be in communion with, and of course our invitation is to live in that place throughout the day, live in that energy place. I don't know many people that do that all day. We're all on the journey, right?
Yeah,
and there's no
right.
there. It's not like anybody ever really gets there 1,000%. But this is the basis is really living in that place of in that inner place that deeply affects our being, such that our being is just a lot more patient and a lot more kind and more and listening because others are doing their best.
I think you bring up a good point. Is that okay? Let me see, because I seem to be tracking off of here. For those of us who do this kind of work and who live this life, and there really is no difference between our day job and our personal. It's all one to me, and so it reflects who I am, and that's what I put out. But that's what the world sees if it can see it. But it's also where there's no difference for me in interacting with people. And what you're talking about is the tolerance you develop for ourselves as individuals and in this journey of enlightenment, that there's some days, there's some moments when that slips. and you can feel where, it's okay, I'm going to have to chew on that a little bit. And that makes it all the more precious to me when you have those events that happen, and because then you realize, there I am in the grace. There I am. And you start to respect yourself differently, I think. What leadership for me is got that you have respect is paramount. That what you do is as vital as what I do, because in the spectrum of all, that's what is. And you have to have tolerance. You have to have appreciation. You have to have respect. Compassion comes out of those things. And the connectiveness, the acknowledgement that we are all one on that level. And that we all serve, and I'll use the word serve because a lot of people are comfortable with that in being who you are helps the whole. And that probably is getting back to the 100th monkey principle, is that something starts, it gets picked up in the quantum entanglement field, if we're going to talk about consciousness technologies. And on that level, it starts to work out around. And then it does in that mysterious sort of way that quantum physics is that way over there, it started too. And way over there, it started too. And then all of a sudden, here's this network and here's this information that is starting to show up. And we can think in terms of global now, because that's where our technology has taken us. But what's really important is that when it's way over there, you don't notice it necessarily. Where you do notice it is where it's with your neighbor. You do notice it when it's your city. You do notice it when it's your country, because when it gets so big, it kind of loses, right? Because we're really very detail-oriented people, and so we want to see it in front of us. Does that make sense?
Yes. A couple things you were talking about leadership, which we should just chat a minute about this too, because it's such a loaded term, and many in the conscious community say, "Why is it's an oxymoron? Why would we even talk about leadership?" And it is true that there's a whole new definition of the word leadership. It's not the Western world CEO up in his or her head making a decision and pounding the table. That
got it. Yes.
Being hospitalized even as we speak. We're actually here on station, for something very important at this moment, at this decision point moment in the Earth's evolution. We're all at a station. We're all going within, and we're guided to what that station is. So that's really key. We're all leaders, and if anything, it's not follow me. It's I'll go first, and it's not I'll go first in some chest beating way. It's I'll go first in a. I went within. I was deeply guided when I did go within, and interestingly, I was guided to go play this role, which is something quite unique and different, and it felt very true and real for me. So I'm going to go do that, and there aren't really mentors that would show me how to do it. It's I'm pushing the boundaries of what we do here on the planet a bit with this, but it feels true, it feels real, it feels conscious. And so I'm going to go do that. And so it's a really very, very different definition of leadership.
And so what happens, right, because you're doing it for yourself. That's why we use the term personal, I suppose. And leadership is never a word that I use too much in my own realm. It's about appreciating oneself, and that you don't have to wait around for someone to tell you what to do, that you can find that in yourself first because you are curious. And I think a huge part of life is about curiosity, because curiosity takes you to the next thing, and then it leads to creativity. And what comes is an answer to your question. And we're doing that on all different kinds of levels. And what we have to remember is that most of us, and I'm going to say that in a grand term, stop questioning at some point, someplace along the line. And we've gotten very lackadaisical about it. We've gotten very complacent and complicit about not questioning. Because when you question, that's an opportunity for something new to show up. And that's what we look for in leadership, for instance. We look for a new answer. And so we have that within each of us, and we find our answers. And only in recognizing that part of ourselves, that intuitive side, that connected side, our oneness, whatever our words are going to be, do you get that. Because you're not in an emotional place with it. You're in an appreciative place of all the forces that are available and are around and how we interact. And I think that's what we're looking for all of us.
Yeah, there's no, that comes back to this whole thing of there's no like single truth or there, where there's some top of the mountain and we're there and it's all done. So it's constantly unfolding. Which means if it's constantly unfolding, then we're in a process. And in a process, we're asking questions. And as you mentioned, there's a curiosity, there are intuitions, there are all kinds of things going on. And also here, a very important point in what we're coming down on now is this whole, so as conscious leaders, what exactly are we doing? Are we trying to save the world, or are we following the impulse of our soul in every moment? We're not here to save the world. It's too big a job, but we're all of your listeners and the humanities team community, and so many of these emerging conscious communities on the earth are doing the work. And the work is about following the impulse of our soul and really going in our spiritual practice, feeling into what is my station? What are the what are the ways that I want to deploy my gifts? What are the things that I can do to live consciously and to support others living consciously, and then to be really very honest about that, and to because none of us that are conscious, or nobody that I know, walks on water and is in perfection, we're doing our best, and that's pretty good. That's really good. Doing our best. We're not in perfection. We're not even in excellence a lot of the time, but we are committed. We're devoted. We're doing our best, and we can speak honestly to, wow, I really feel so good about these ways that I'm contributing, and here and here and here, and candidly in these other areas, it's developmental for me. I'm learning some new things, and that's really when we speak with others that are honest like that and that are devoting their lives like that. It makes a huge impression. It does on me, where I'm out having lunch with or talking to somebody, and they're sharing in that way. I'll go, wow, and I'll turn off my talking mode and just go straight into listening mode to really sponge up everything they're wanting to share.
What a wonderful way to describe that, Steve. You turn off your talking mode and you go into your listening mode. Everyone has a story. Everybody has a fascinating story, whether they view it themselves that way or not. And that's what we look to do in sharing and being who we are. And this state of oneness, on an unspoken level, you connect. Right? It's like when you go swim with the dolphins and the whales, and they look at you and something's there, and they know you in your truth. And that's why we like to go swim with them, because the language is taken care of. And that in being able to listen to the other, you hear yourself. You hear, because we're all connected, and to literally put that into action, right, as to take it out of words, is to just notice that where the language can get heavy-cavy and you just go, because words can mean both opposite things and all kinds of stuff, is that I sense, and this is what's so important, is when you get out of the verbal communication, you go into your sensory modes. And as you listen, that's where the compassion, and that's where the judgments fall away, and that's where you feel the source. You feel source because you appreciate that you over there are in the same soup, experiencing what you're experiencing. And I value that. It's not my experience, but I'm through my connection to you. That's a wealth of information that helps inform me in my world and my world definition, and what's important to me and what's not important to me. Because I think in the polarity and in the contrast, there's so much gain from hearing the different perspective that we're each always going to be in our own story. And so the more we can let go of our story and drop down into that listening place, you can realize how much miscommunication is going on that level. So it's only when you step back and you go, did he say what I thought he said? Maybe I need to listen different. Does that get activated? And that's a powerful place to be. That's a great tool.
Yeah, and that's oneness.
That's oneness.
And when we talk in the humanities team about awakening our oneness with the divine, each other, and all of life, this is exactly what we're talking about. That it's not like we're creating something new, that we're creating oneness. We already are all one. We always have been all one. There's no separation between any of us, you and me, Janet, or our listeners,
or this planet, or this cosmos,
or the divine. Yeah, we already are all one, and this is part of some of the fruit of consciousness. Is exactly this, where we go into this immersive place with each other, with the divine, with the earth. And we're just feeling, and we're in a communion space where we're hearing, we're appreciating, we're blessing, we're supporting, where that's where there's a role for that. We're just bringing all of these things in, and because things like in the unconscious world, like competition, it really is not in our natural state to compete. We're not really in oneness. We're up in our head. Getting out of this place of communion when we start thinking of, okay, I'm gonna fight this and do this.
Yeah.
And Whereas when we're in this place of oneness and affirming and blessing and listening and even, I'll call it even in communion, wow, it just doesn't get better than that.
When you're talking about competition and accomplishment, and that these are involved from a place of over another, against another, in terms of another, is where we get into trouble. When you compete with yourself, okay, I'm going to do this today because I didn't do it yesterday. And so, we get into all this story. Now, there's drives. There are things that move us. And, I think sometimes people, depending upon whatever their backstory is what's driving them now, plus their unease. I think we think in terms of less than. We think in terms of more than, less than, have something you don't have it kind of thing. And that's all part of self, but that's all part of the infinite also, because it's how it's playing out and what you do with it again. I don't want to succeed, and this is just from the deepest places of me. I don't want to be succeeding so that you're less. I have no interest in that. And I see so much business that's oriented about this. We got to beat the other guy. We got to get aggressive. We got to do all these things. There's a different intensity and integrity that takes place. And so we're playing with what leaves the other as valued as ourselves. Don't you think?
For sure. For sure. And, for me, just because now we're in the building blocks of what consciousness is, for me, the whole process and in my personal journey, it worked this way, is it started with this whole, I knew, the life process as I understand it is freedom, where we're loved and supported in any decision that we make. So, and the creator or divine or universe says to us, my will is your will. I'm in service to you. Now, when we, during our journey, stop and turn around and say, and whoa, I understand I'm a part of the one with all of the other parts of the one here on this planet, and I love the one. I'm in service to the one. So when we say I'm in service to the one, after then that's where the magic starts, and that's where this real beautiful conscious journey starts, because the tornado starts to spin. Because when the universe, the divine, is in service to us, and we're in service to it, whoa, this is where this real power and conscious leadership, or in consciousness, comes into play, where we're blessed and miracles happen. And because basically what we're doing is we're saying, okay, I'm going to align my personal prosperity with the collective prosperity. I'm going to, anytime creating personal prosperity that is disconnected from and that might be hurting the collective prosperity.
Right.
And so, for me, like about 20 years ago when I was in Silicon Valley, I was a technology guy myself. And when I made that decision, that's where everything really got quite interesting. Because as it does, by the way, for every single person, where we're in service to the one, the earth, to humanity, to consciousness, to conscious evolution, then the boulders get removed from our path. The blessings come. And it's not that our day isn't challenging anymore, because our days can be very challenging, they just are. But the thing is we never get turned over on our back. It never ends. We always right ourselves and keep going. And we always get to our destination when we're on this conscious journey and we believe.
Well, and okay, so this is the thing that was rattling back there about free will. And for some reason, this was coming up in that little earlier discussion we were having, that how does free will fit into all this? We are very focused on free will in this country, right? It's a guiding principle. Don't tell me what to do and go out and do it. And I don't know if it plays in other countries because you see different kinds of governments and things and how people rule themselves. And this is all about self-rule. I know, which has been showing up in my world a lot lately, working with people and stuff, is that what is freedom, right? And maybe this is something that's obviously part of this conversation that we haven't got to yet, is in that I think when you're out of form, it's all about freedom. There's no limits, right? There's something that's just a sense or a state of something, and it doesn't have any form. And that consciousness is all about that, but it's also about what's in form. And that when we incarnate, I can use that word, or when we become this thing that we feel that we are in this body, that there's a sense of loss of freedom. And I think, because now we're limited, now we have an arm and it only reaches so far, and now I have this and I don't like, and we define ourselves by the limits, by what we can and cannot do and can and cannot have, and all that wonderful contrast starts to play. That the key about enlightenment and in the journey that we're all on is how to reconcile. Let me see if I can get this in some orderly progression, that we are free in form. That's what we're looking to explore and what we're expressed. Because each of us is greeting the world how we feel, how we've organized in our stories about being. And whatever our backgrounds and whatever the textures of life that we've gained in being in this form and in this body, particular to this personality, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is how freedom doesn't come from putting another down. And so no one else can make me feel a prisoner unless I've organized it that way. And that's why I've always greatly admired people like Mandela and John McCain and other people who have been in physical prisons and have managed to walk in grace when they leave them. And what they understand about life from that position, and how there's such a massive population presently that feels imprisoned and is being demonstrated that way through their governments and policies and different things. And that we're all looking to experience what life is. It's not for me to judge what your life is. It is for me to experience what my life is and how I'm using what I find myself to be as the infinite and wonder and essence and soul and consciousness, whatever your words you want to use, in expression. Because that's what life is. It's about expressing. Okay, I got that out.
Yeah. And you brought in McCain and Nelson Mandela, and so they're beautiful examples, and especially they both are. But Nelson Mandela, let me maybe go there. Because, wow, we talk about a way shower as we have freedom to live our life in the way that we'd like to live our life, whatever way that might be. That of course, is what we're born with free will, and then we have this free choice throughout our life. But you look at Nelson Mandela, wow, as you mentioned, he was a prisoner for a couple of decades.
Yeah.
And then he's elected president. And he has the jailer sitting in the first row as he's taking his oath of office. And then he creates the Truth and Reconciliation Committee so that people can those that had hurt others could find their way to a normal place in society through truth and reconciliation. And also the term Ubuntu that he and Desmond Tutu created, which is oneness, which is, I am because you are, and which Nelson Mandela lived so beautifully. So earlier when I was using this, when I was saying this process where we come into service because the divine / universe, one mind, is in service to us and the miracles start. That's what Ubuntu is, where we're seeing, I am because you are, and so we're in service to the world around us. And you look at Nelson Mandela. We by the way, we gave him posthumously our Spiritual Leadership Award. So Global Council went down to South Africa. We met at his foundation there. His very close friends and the CEO of the foundation, they were telling their stories about him. And one of the stories they were telling is that, of course, he achieved this incredible fame and respect beyond anything, maybe except for maybe that Gandhi achieved. Mm-hmm. And so people were always calling into him and saying, "What can I do?" And so often what leaders will share, especially in developing countries where there's so much poverty, is to give money into this business I'm starting, or this something that's self-aggrandizing or family-aggrandizing. And what Nelson Mandela would always do is he'd say, well, there's this school that's opening up over here, or this initiative over there involving Ubuntu or something. And he was always directing the funds to these initiatives that were supporting flourishing communities in a flourishing earth, in Ubuntu, in oneness. And so way showers are very powerful. They're our North Star, in life, where we, as we're walking around in confusion of, wow, this has been a tough day, this has been very challenging, I'm feeling sort of the chaos of things around me. These way showers, these North Stars, like Nelson Mandela, can just be so incredibly valuable to us because they've actually demonstrated with their life lived what exactly we can do when we're up against these severe challenges.
And everybody's got it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so here's a shining example of someone who was in, you got a good day, you got a bad day, and how do you find your way to it, right? And what do you do with it? What wonderful, how fortunate for you to, that's right, because you guys work globally in what you do. And I've got the Dalai Lama running through my mind here because he's also someone who has taken, he had a certain position and he came in with a certain position, right, of title, but he more than fulfilled it, right? He took that and made something. And not that that was necessarily what the role defined was. He's taken that beyond and made his life have meaning for those outside of his personal reference. And that's what we're looking to do. You can do that. You can be that. You can be any of these gentlemen. Who you are, it starts with you. And to the degree that you influence yourself, and then you influence the person you're next to, and then you influence your community, is all about you. And so there's no difference between me and a Nelson Mandela, except in what I look like and stuff. But in the interior space of appreciating and having tolerance and giving value, there's no difference. We connect in that oneness. And so we have to let go of what things look like and what things seem like and what we presume them to be based on our biases, and really just notice those examples of where my truth, how do I feel about that at my core? How do I want to be? Do I want to strike out at that person? That's probably not at core. That's probably an emotional response. So we call it heart-centered awareness. In being in this state where you notice something going on, you've taken it back from the body, you've taken it back from your emotions, you've taken it into the essence of all. And so from the essence of all, I can appreciate that there are different values and there are different places, and I have tolerance for all. I appreciate that my body is going to want a certain framework to be comfortable in, and my life may be about strife with that. And so that's great. That's a place that you work out of. You're still in the world. You're still in that infinite place. And that's just the perspective you work out of, you express from. And so no matter the title, you make a difference because you, in connecting to this place, that's what you're putting out into the world, to whatever degree you're putting it out into the world. And Life is fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And just as you're mentioning here, living in our highest truth, that's really what this is all about. And when we bring in way showers, Nelson Mandela or the Dalai Lama, who's another beautiful, fabulous way shower. What's interesting is we have this way, especially in Western societies, of wanting to put these people on pedestals, where they're way up there and we're way down here. And sometimes we'll even engage in this process of worminess of, we're so awful, we couldn't get close to them. We can't touch that. Well, the way that's defeating the whole purpose of what the way shower is trying to bring in. What all of these people share, Nelson Mandela and Dalai Lama and others before them, is, and what I'm being, you can be too, and you are, with your beautiful gifts, with your beautiful expression, with your maturity, so. And that's really ultimately it really always is coming back to us. It's coming back to our own highest truth, living that expression. And when we don't, when we have these days that are very challenging, and maybe we say some things or do some things that we wish we hadn't, being loving with ourselves and saying, that I really did my best. I did my best. I'm not perfect. I really just today had a lot in it, and there were a few too many things that maybe triggered me, and just being loving with ourselves, and actually really appreciating ourselves that we're so committed and so devoted and that we're on this conscious journey.
Well, I think you make a very good point, is we love to idolize, and I don't know where that's from. I don't know if that's other country. Yeah, wherever people are, is everything is a symbol. That's just the way we seem to be organized. And what happens is that when you're playing that game, you're looking for falling off the pedestal. And that's to the individual. Well, what did they do? You describe so well. Hey, I'm having a great day, and then I do some things that, on hindsight, or as I was saying it, and it was coming out of my mouth, and I heard that, I went, that's not really evolved. And in being appreciating those places in ourselves, that is perfection to me. I think. We get stuck in these kind of idealism that, okay, perfect means that there's no cracks in the plate. For me, a crack in a plate is absolutely perfect too. See, because I see how it's part of the whole, how the whole is holding together. And with this interesting place that's seemingly split, it's still together. So it depends upon what levels you're playing at, I think. So, well, we're just at about time here, Steve. So it's kind of gone on in an effortless sort of fashion. Is there anything you'd like to leave people with that feels like it's kind of at a draw for us here?
Yeah, if people are interested in the works of Humanities Team, this whole process of awakening oneness and then living into the unity of all of life, you can learn about us by going to humanitiesteam.org. That's with a Y, not an IES, humanitiesteam.org. And also our Facebook community is really quite large. I think it's about 673,000. And if you go to Humanities Team Worldwide on Facebook, you can friend us. And we've got we've got Global Oneness Day, we have transformational education programs, we have conscious business programs. There are all kinds of things that we're doing. And we're still, to this day, 16 years in, either all volunteer or lightly paid. I'm a volunteer myself, 16 years in. So a really devoted, committed group of colleagues, partners that really see this awakening, happening in this generation.
In this generation.
Yes.
I think that's really important. There are so many people and listeners, as you have been following along, notice where you are with this, with ideas perhaps that have challenged you or compromised you or you were unclear of, is that it's already happening. And it's just, so it's not something you have to invent. All you have to do is just be present, and the information is there. The choices that are there are already. It's not something you have to go out and get. And Steve, thank you so very, very much. That information will be on the episode page, so people will be able to see how to get a hold of you. And thank you so very much. And maybe we can do this again about another topic about people involved in consciousness. All right.
Yeah, thank you, Janet. It's a privilege to be with you and your listeners, and just Godspeed to all of us. May this conscious evolution journey unfold beautifully, and in this generation, we make it happen. I know many of us are committed, devoted to that.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, thank you.
Steve uses the term way showers, which is new to my ear. He is speaking of those who lead us by the example of their being in the richness of what is possible. What happens when one comes into the service to the divine, one mind? His examples are Jesus, Buddha, Pope Francis, and the Dalai Lama. Can't get much better than that. Steve enjoys material that talks about a loving God, spirit, divine, and that emphasizes we are offspring or emanations of the divine. The Bible and Conversations with God, written by Neale Donald Walsch, offer many passages like this. He invites you to explore them further. For more about the 100th Monkey Principle and about morphic resonance, collective genetic memory, check out Rupert Sheldrake, Ph.D., at www.sheldrake.org. A biologist and author, he was recognized to be one of the top global thought leaders in 2013 by those who keep track of such things. Find him on YouTube explaining the science delusion. He is challenging enough to science to make the banned TED Talk list that you can catch. For quantum entanglement and proof of the scientific communication we enjoy already, check out a great article, Science is Getting Closer to Proving Telepathic Communication, at Gaia.com. All the direct links to these will be listed on the episode 12 page at www.janetandbeyond.com. Here are some quotes of great bits of wisdom and thoughts during our conversation that caught my ear. Following the Impulse of Our Soul, from Awaken New Species by Neale Donald Walsch. And I got two quotes from Steve. The first one was, align your sense of personal prosperity as part of the collective prosperity. And then turn off talking mode and turn on listening mode. Too often we are invested in sharing what is on our mind and not really listening to what others want to share. It is more loving to balance our own sharing with our listening, and we will glean greater wisdom this way. And my thought, wholeness or oneness is such a mixture of this and that, all working together. When I find myself faltering, I remember this. It makes it easier to expand beyond my sense of me and to the totality of me as one. More of us are awakening to our connection to all life on this planet as oneness. More are becoming aware of wholeness. Oneness is about being connected, and wholeness is the totality of what that includes. We have individual experiences and shared experiences that combine and create our thoughts and realities. We each add to the whole. Our habituated shared realities are what Rupert Sheldrake, Ph.D., explores. He promotes the awareness that what shows up in our world is habituated thinking that is being projected into being. The collective genetic memory creates the mechanism of connection of the habituated thought. We don't have to ask our question of, do any of us make a difference? We know in physical terms how it only takes one human with an automatic weapon or bomb to eradicate life around him discriminately and indiscriminately. It takes only one company dumping pollution and then an industry that starts the ball rolling. It takes only one voice promoting fear as reasonable. We are acting like it is okay to be armored in battle as such in urban life, and that every neighborhood anywhere is a battlefield. Guerrilla warfare among civilians in the extreme. It doesn't have to be this way, but we are allowing it to be okay. What we are feeling and thinking about life is the issue. It is not a question of does one make a difference. We are now in touch in more ways as ever before with what we may not have known we had lurking inside. Society is reflecting our racial bias, gender bias, male-female bias, etc., etc., etc. We've got biases coming out of our hearts that have been eating away at us. Locked-in feelings of fear, hopelessness, and despair abound about feeling powerful to create what we want to live. We are receiving our slaps into awareness. What if? What if there was no weapon pointed at another? What if, instead? What if I pointed love at another? What if I pointed kindness at another? What if love and kindness radiate out of me in every direction? What if others are doing the same thing at the same time? Feel the difference? Each of us is our own leader of self. What if this is your sense of leadership then? Leaders radiating out love and kindness, as that is what they are accessing within. Sharing in a global awareness of limited resources to be cared for and to use wisely and respectfully. Not one against another, but with differences to be appreciated. What if there was no side to take, only unity? This kind of leadership is about wholeness and oneness at core. Nothing falls outside of the collective consciousness. Do we witness our leaders radiating love and kindness and respect towards one another and others, as that is what we are doing? Not only our spiritual leaders, but our political leaders. And aren't they the same? The real question might be more, what am I offering as part of the collective, presently active memory of man? You can find out more about Humanity's Team and all their great work at www.humanitiesteam.org and globalonenesssummit.org and www.facebook.com Humanities Team Worldwide. Thank you for joining me here at Journeys to Enlightenment with Janet. A new episode is released every 2 weeks. Any questions or thoughts or guests you'd like to suggest, you can email me directly at janetandbeyondpodcast@outlook.com. For more information about all the elements that make up each episode, they are on my podcast page at my website, www.janetandbeyond.com. While there, you will also find information about my other podcast show, Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet, and all about my work with clients. You can sign up to receive my regular weekly blog, Life in the Beyond, Journeys into Enlightenment. If you're looking for other regular opportunities to sit in heart-centered awareness with myself and others, you can join us in my Fuzzy Photons playground groups I offer on Thursdays. Live interactive space via Zoom video conferencing. You can follow each episode of this podcast series on my YouTube channel, Journeys into Enlightenment with Janet Barrett. Till the next time, notice what feels different right in this moment. It is real, and it can last a lifetime.